Maryland football went down to Charlottesville and took care of business against Virginia. Men's soccer captured a top 10 win in their conference opener, and both field hockey and volleyball grabbed wins to close out the weekend. We'll break down all of that and more coming up on this edition of The Left Bench.
In the second half, you saw us play some good complementary football on all three phases.
Team effort from beginning to end. It's something we've been building to.
Welcome into Studio A here in College Park. This is The Left Bench presented by Terrapin Sports Central. I'm Jonas Evans, that's Nathan Schwartz, and Nate, we're back at the desk and Maryland football is back in the win column.
That's right, Jonas. Maryland was going for their fourth straight win against Virginia in Charlottesville this Saturday. Maryland football limped into halftime against Virginia, lucky to be within a score of the Cavaliers. But Coach Michael Locksley must have given the Terps some of his secret stuff because a second half shutout propelled the Terps to a road win. The Maryland forced 2 turnovers in the first half, but Billy Edwards Jr. and the Maryland offense couldn't gain any momentum. Then with less than a minute left to go in the second quarter, Edwards Jr. finds Ty Felton to get the Terps on the board. But just like that, UVA QB Anthony Calandria leads the Hoos down the field to find the end zone before half. Now to the second half, and it was all Maryland. Edwards Jr. finds Caden Prather for a quick TD to get Maryland back on top, and they never give the lead back. 2 more turnovers and a turtle push seals the second half flurry and the 27-13 win. Here's Coach Locksley on his team's resilience.
I felt last week we watched the scoreboard a little too much, and that scoreboard creates anxiety. And that's the whole piece of this week was all about us is we don't really care about the scoreboard. We don't care about the mistakes. And when it get the game to the fourth quarter, and our playmakers should make plays, and we were able to do that.
Just talked about it, but the first half for Maryland in Charlottesville was downright ugly.
But the Terps were able to flip the script, and this guy has more on what the turning point was that led to the win.
Maryland football collapsed in the fourth quarter a week ago against Michigan State. And in the first half of yesterday's rivalry matchup against Virginia, a similar pattern followed suit. The offense looked out of sync, the penalties were stacking, and the defense gave up a 71-yard touchdown drive in the final minute of the second quarter.
I thought that Virginia came out and out-efforted us in the first half. And that's not anything that I've ever had to be concerned with our team. Then I thought the physicality in which they played, they kind of out-physicaled us as well, and the penalties. And so those are things that we can control.
But even after that rough first half, the start of the second half was something special for Maryland. The defense started with a 3-and-out, then the offense came out with an 8-play drive to take the lead back, a lead they did not look back from.
We were all just calm, staying together, and really embraced our mentality of not flinching. We really came together and knew that the game was going to be on the defense. The offense was going to come, but if we wanted to win, we can't let them score anymore.
The Terps defense used that mentality to get the ball back in the hands of Billy Edwards Jr., and he made the most of it. That 8-play drive to start the half ended with a 26-yard jump ball to Caden Prather, his first touchdown of the season.
When coming out the second half, we told the defense, just keep on going. We're gonna make it happen. So we ended up making it happen and getting a W. So
Maryland did all the little things right from that point on, converting on 3rd and 4th down, putting together highlight reel catches, and even getting back to the turtle push. But it was that stretch to begin the second half that served as the turning point in this one.
As Coach Locke said on Thursday, just keep pushing the rock up the hill, and then, after 60 minutes, we can look and see how far we've come. So I think the defense really helped us, and I think in the second half you saw us, play some good complementary football on all three phases.
For Terrapin Sports Central, I'm Nathan Schwartz. And now we're glad to welcome back our good friend and one of the sports editors for the Diamondback, Brandon Schwartzberg, who was at Scott Stadium with us on Saturday. Brandon, thanks for coming back, man.
It's an honor every time I come on with you boys.
Absolutely it is. And let's get right into it. And let's start with this Maryland defensive effort, because it's no secret that things did not go the way that Brian Williams and company wanted them to go against Michigan State. But coming into this Virginia game, that rough first half, but Maryland really settled in defensively. What do you think was the key to that success?
Yeah, I think while they did give up the big plays, there were a lot less of them. I think it was a big kind of bend but don't break mentality from that defense. You saw numerous times, especially throughout the first half, Virginia would get to the goal line, but then besides Calandria's scramble, which that'll happen with a quarterback that has the talent as he has at the end of the first half. Besides that, it was a lot of goal line stops. Again, they did get a little bit lucky with the fumble. Virginia offensive lineman kicked the football out of Calandria's hand, so you get a lucky break there. But at a certain point, you're going to get those throughout the game. And then they have had games throughout the season so far, every single game, they've got multiple turnovers. And I think that's really been the key to offset what has really been a young secondary. And so I think as the season goes on, they're going to need to get these turnovers, going to need to be a bend but don't break defense to really overmatch the secondary struggles.
So this season, you've heard answers from Mike Locksley for 3 weeks now. When it comes to that starting quarterback position and Billy Edwards, we discussed earlier at the game how his job might be in jeopardy. Where do you think the confidence level is at right now with this coaching staff?
Yeah, it's funny because for the past 4 years, there have been no issues, no worries. At quarterback, it's been, without a doubt, Talia Tagovailoa. And then entering the season, as you said, there was some concern. There was a worry. Who was it going to be? You had MJ Morris, Cam Edge, Billy Edwards Jr. And Billy Edwards Jr. has really kind of taken the spot and shined for the most part. The coaching staff has had a ton of confidence in him. Coach Michael Locksley said after the game against Virginia that he's really an extension of the coaching staff, and that's why they trust him so much. There was a moment on Maryland's last touchdown drive. It was a stretch of, I believe, 5 or 6 straight quarterback runs. And after one of their timeouts, Billy Edwards Jr. came to the sideline. He went over to Josh Gaddis, and he said, hey, this is what I want to run. What do you think? And Gaddis said, yep, absolutely, go for it. And I think that just kind of shows how in tune Billy Edwards Jr. is with the coaching staff, and that's kind of been why the offense hasn't been perfect, but it also has gone through most of its adversity, especially in that Virginia game.
It sounds like Billy is really coming into his own, and somebody else who is coming into his own is Ty Felton. And the connection between those two has been something special to see. What do you think has allowed for Ty to blossom into the superstar that he's becoming?
Yeah, you know, Ty Felton is a guy that's kind of waited his turn. Michael Locksley was really loyal to him through the recruiting process, and that's kind of why he decided to wait and not transfer, sitting behind Dante Demas, Rakim Jarrett, Jayshon Jones. There's so many talented receivers, and I think because of that, Ty Felton has really been able to learn from a bunch of them, even Gunther Brewer, who's now no longer with the team, but he was a really good wide receivers coach. And so because of that, he was able to learn learn what it takes to become a true number one receiver. And after the game, both Ty and Billy talked about mentally kind of in the offseason. That was the biggest thing that Ty really had to get over that hurdle, and he's become a leader for that room. It was interesting. I know, Jonas, we've talked about this a little bit about how interesting it was when they said that Ty Felton is now becoming leader for guys like Hayden Prather, who
right,
you wouldn't think.
It jumps out for sure. And I think the practice mentality that he has you just hear it from every single person in that program right now. He is such a hard worker, and it totally comes across now.
And I wanted to follow up on the rest of the wide receiver room because, yes, while Ty Felton has 27 catches, almost 500 yards, and keep in mind, it's just after 3 weeks this season, but is anybody else on this offense going to get heavily involved? We've seen Prather have his moments with a touchdown against Virginia, 60 yards in the opener, but we haven't seen a whole lot of either Dylan Wade or Preston Howard, and Shalik Knox and Octavian Smith have both been quiet as well.
Yeah, I think as the season goes on, it's going to be one of the two tight ends, Preston Howard or Dylan Wade, that really kind of steps up. They lost Corey Dyches last year. He took a step back numbers-wise from the previous season, but he was still a very important piece of that offense. And I think as conference play continues, you're going to need kind of a bigger threat, especially in the red zone. And I honestly don't know which one it's going to be between Preston and Dylan. We've seen already this season, both of them have had huge catches. I know Preston had a huge third down catch that extended a drive against Virginia, really showcased his strength and one of the reasons why the coaching staff loved him so much. And so I think down the stretch of the season, it's going to be one of those two, in my opinion, that really kind of takes the step as the biggest, most important receiver.
Speaking of red zone threats, that wheel route to Nolan Ray has been working pretty well. He had the most rushing yards for the Terps against Virginia last weekend. But if you kind of base it off of last season, I think all signs kind of pointed to Roman Hemby being that lead rusher. So what do you kind of expect to happen with this running back room towards the end of the season?
Yeah, Locksley has kind of historically, since he's gone here, liked to utilize a bunch of different running backs. I mean, last year was McDonald, Kobe McDonald, Antoine Littleton, and Roman Hemby. And this year I think it's Hemby, it's McDonald, and then Nolan Ray, as you mentioned. I just think that because of how long the season is, and especially for Maryland, a team that's gone to a bowl game each of the past few years, you're going to have that extra game. I think Locksley likes to utilize as many backs as he can, both for the purpose of training them. The best training, obviously, experience is in the game, and then also just keeping guys like Roman Hemby fresh. I mean, he's a two-time honorable mention All Big Ten, so he's got the talent. But again, I think because of both the running back room, kind of how deep it is, and also the offensive line. It's frankly an inexperienced group. Andre Roy left the game early. We don't know his status, and so if he's out for any significant amount of time, that would throw a wrench even more into the run game, into the offensive line. And so I think just as the season goes on, again, kind of similar to the tight end room, you're going to get a collection of options, but Roman Hemby will be kind of the go-to guy as the season goes on.
All right, Brandon, one more before we let you go here. Obviously, it's still early. One conference game down, one non-conference game to go, and then Maryland starts to get into the thick of conference play. Of course, the Big Ten reshaping this year. What do you think right now is the ceiling for this team? Because coming into the year, a lot of people were saying 8 and 9 wins.
It's a tough question.
Yeah. Not knowing the exact schedule off the top of my head, just a general sense, I'd say probably around maybe 8 wins, most likely 7 is the ceiling. I know you're going to have tough games. USC, Iowa, they're tough games. They're at home. I'd say Iowa's the easiest out of those two to win, and then going on the road to Penn State, Oregon, those are definitely the 2 most difficult games. I mean, if you look at entering the season, Indiana probably wouldn't have expected as a tough game. They're looking really well under a new head coach. Northwestern, you never know kind of what you're going to get from the Wildcats, and so I think that I'd say 7 wins is probably, maybe 8 is the ceiling, and I think that definitely another bowl game is within the realm of possibility, especially considering how we saw the bounce back from Maryland in the second half against Virginia. I think that really kind of gave an example of how when they are going to be faced with adversity this year, they have the talent and the skill set to overcome it.
I'm sure 8 wins would sound pretty good to a lot of Maryland fans
happy,
out there. But Brandon, that's all we got for you right now. We'll have you back a little bit later, but thanks so much for joining us once again.
Yep, thank you.
You can stay up to date with Brandon's coverage on X at bschwartzberg03 and at dbknews.com. Now, with college football just kicking off and some teams beginning conference play next week, it's only right that we go around the Big Ten.
TSC's Drew Owens is in Studio B to tell us more. Drew?
Yeah, guys, it was a memorable week for certain teams as some took on their in-state rivals while others dominated on their home turf. Maryland football was not the only team that played against an old foe this past weekend, but multiple teams faced in-state rivals. Let's start in the Midwest, where Purdue took on then number 18 ranked Notre Dame. The Fighting Irish jumped out to an early 14-0 lead. QB Riley Nelson has not 1, not 2, but 3 rushing touchdowns as the Irish take down the Boilermakers in this one, 66-7. Out west, number 9 ranked Oregon took on Oregon State. Jordan James, Dylan Gabriel, and the Ducks combined for 546 yards. The Ducks dominate 49-14 in this one. Now, keeping it on the West Coast, Washington and Washington State battled out for the Apple Cup. And this one goes down to the wire, where the Cougars get a stop on 4th and goal. The Huskies had no answer for QB John Mateer as he goes for 307 passing yards in the 24-19 WSU win. Across the country, other top 25 teams commanded from start to finish, and the top 10 teams defended their rankings. Then ranked number 17 Michigan took down Arkansas State 28-18, despite quarterback Davis Warring throwing 3 interceptions in that game. Matt Rule and Nebraska are on a roll. QB Dylan Raiola passed for 247 yards and 2 touchdowns in the 34-3 win over Northern Iowa, one of the best starts in recent history for the Huskers. Now, Wisconsin this weekend got a visit from number 4 Alabama and got slammed 42-10. While Indiana had one of their largest margins of victory in a Big Ten opener in over 20 years, beating UCLA 42-13. One of the best plays of the weekend, Michigan State. Charles Brantley, who had a 100-yard pick six to help secure the Spartans the win over Prairie View. Now, on the topic of the top 25, right now there are currently 7 teams in the Big Ten that rank within the AP top 25. You can see here in the top 10 we have Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State in the top 10. Then 11 USC, number 18 Michigan, Nebraska moves up 1 with number 22, and Illinois pops into the rankings at 24. Now, compared to everybody else in Power 4 conferences, the Big Ten sits second to none only other than the SEC. Now, something interesting about these rankings is that 4 of the top 25 teams in the Big Ten all play each other next week. USC will be heading to Ann Arbor to face off against Michigan, and these 2 teams right here, Illinois will be heading to Lincoln, Nebraska to take on the Huskers. Now, Nate and Jonas, there's still so much action taking place in the conference. Several key matchups between other teams are coming up within a few weeks. Lots of great Big Ten football to keep tabs on. Guys?
Yeah, and Drew, one of those key matchups that I'm thinking about is the one you just talked about, USC against Michigan. Michigan changes its quarterback. Alex Orji's going to get the ball for the Wolverines this week. This is now the new landscape of Big Ten football. Who would have thought that USC would be going to the Big House in week 4?
I'm still not ready for that visual of Maryland playing USC. It just doesn't make sense in my head. And I think the conference itself is probably not super excited for this weekend because all those top 25 matchups, they're probably going to lose a few ranked teams.
Yeah, Maryland going to Oregon, too. That's going to be the one that really doesn't make a lot of sense.
All right, well, we've still got plenty of Terps to cover, including men's soccer with a huge Big Ten upset.
And later, Alexa Wooten will join us to break down men's basketball's latest recruit, all after a short break.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
There's so many rewards in life. You coming into our home was one of the greatest rewards we could have ever had.
You know, it took 20 years and I got my 3rd child who was 17 at the time.
It's so cool to watch the adult that you've become, and you really have done as much for us as you think we've done for you.
To the Left Bench, presented by Terrapin Sports Central. He's Jonas Evans. I'm Nathan Schwartz, and let's put a pin in all this football talk because Maryland men's soccer picked up its first conference win in almost 2 years.
That sure is right, Nate. Sasho Surofsky's squad opened Big Ten play Friday night against number 8 Wisconsin. And coming into this match, the Badgers were undefeated, but that all changed on the pitch. Both teams attempting shots on goal, but could not find the back of the net until the 17th minute. Here comes a corner kick from Max Rogers, allowing midfielder Chris Steinleitner to score his first goal of the season. Second half now, and Bjarne Tyson knocks another one in, and it did not stop there. Colin Griffith gets past a Badger defender and scores the 3rd goal of the night. Wisconsin tries to rally back towards the end, but Maryland's defense holds on, beating the Badgers 3-0 and handing them their first loss of the season. Here's Sasho Surofsky with more.
Complete effort from beginning to end. It's something we've been building to while we've been managing some minutes of players.
Men's soccer excelled in goal scoring, and so did Maryland field hockey. The team scored its most goals in a game since October of 2022. The headliner of the day is Kylie Neiswanger. She scores her first goal of the season against Lock Haven and her first career hat trick at Maryland. The Terps were up 2-1 at the half, but a 4-goal third period put it out of reach for the Bald Eagles. Maryland entered the game with 24 shots on goal all season. They nearly matched that against Lock Haven with 22 shots. The Terps had 6 goal scorers and plenty of other contributions as they gear up for Big Ten play. Here's Missy Maharg after the Bald Eagle beatdown.
Well, I mean, they're backing up so far, right? So they've got all 10 field players underneath us, so all we can do is just kind of snap it around. But what I loved is that we were snapping it around, reshaping and finding the seams. We've been doing a lot of training with that. Those are long hits.
Men's soccer, field hockey, let's go 3 for 3 because Maryland volleyball is also on a roll. The Terps got their 5th straight win on Saturday in a dominant sweep over UMBC. It's Sam Sire leading the charge from Maryland, no surprise there. Her overpass kill gives the Terps the 25-12 first set win. UMBC staying in it in the second, but the Terps get some much-needed help from Samantha Schnida to take the set 26-24. Schnida ends the day with 13 kills, 5 aces, 3 digs, and a block. Here's Zoe Huang recording 24 assists on the day and a couple of clutch aces in the third to extend the lead. Schnida and Sire with some more magic at the net, and the Terps take it 25-16. Maryland wins 3-0, their 5th sweep of the season.
Now back to Ludwig, and unfortunately the hot Maryland winning streak ends here, where Maryland women's soccer couldn't keep up with Michigan State's offense in its Big Ten opener. Let's start just 68 seconds into the match. Michigan State's Bella Najira lasers in the first goal and sets the tone for number 5 Sparty. A few possessions later, and a free kick positions Michigan State to double its lead. Emily Matthews zips in a shot from point-blank range, her team-leading 5th goal of the season. Junior Allie Mayer nets her first career goal, going up by 3 while the Terps are unable to log a first-half shot, save, or corner attempt. 2 more second-half goals puts the nail in the coffin for Sparty, handing Maryland a 5-0 loss, its worst of the season. Here's head coach Megan Ryan-Nemser after the defeat.
It was individual battles, and I thought that when we had the ball, I thought that we turned it over too easily at moments. And it was something that we spoke about in training, but I thought, like, from the first half to the second half, I thought we did grow into the game.
Now, while the college basketball season is still months away, recruiting is, and always is, in full swing.
That's right, Nate. Many college coaches are trying their best to bring in the best and build future rosters. Alexa Wooten has more on Maryland men's basketball's latest grab.
That's right, guys. Constantly the undying question, who is Kevin Willard bringing in? Well, fans are finally getting answers. Willard picked up his first commitment for the 2025 class. The 4-star from AZ Compass Prep, Marcus Jackson. Jackson, at 6'8", toes that line between a strong power forward and an undersized center. Jackson gets a lot of his work done at the rim. He's got a great bounce and can really rebound the ball. An all-around athlete. After next season, Maryland will most likely have to fill a void of size, and to have an athletic rim runner like Jackson is a huge advantage in the Big Ten. Now, Jackson had his pick over other programs, but he selected Maryland over programs like Tennessee, Arizona State, Auburn, UVA, Iowa, and DMV rival Georgetown. Now, here's something you don't see every day. Just days after Jackson's commitment to Maryland while on his official visit, the senior raised significantly in rankings. Jackson went from being ranked nationally at 106 by 247 Sports to moving all the way up into the top 100 at 65. A lot of this comes from impressive showings this summer on the AAU circuit and at the Under Armour Elite 24 in August, ultimately showing the senior is improving at an accelerated rate. And here's something Terps fans will love. Jackson played for local AAU team Team Thrill, but he's not the only Terp who comes from that program. Any guesses who it could be?
Well, local is the key word there, so I'm going to go with Juju Reese.
I like the Juju guess, but I think I'm going to have to go with the most recent, the most notable, the biggest recruit for Maryland in quite some time, Derek Queen. Alexa?
And Nate, you're going to be the one that comes up correct. It's 5-star recruit and McDonald's All-American Derek Queen, who also played for Team Thrill in his AAU days. Hopefully Jackson can bring that same thrill of energy Queen is expected to bring this coming season. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, and thank you, Alexa. Well, there you go. A little bit of connection there for the new recruit. Always good, I guess, for the chemistry, right?
It just feels like there's a lot more of that connection happening with Kevin Willard's recruiting lately.
And that spike in the ranking is definitely interesting.
Absolutely.
One to watch for sure. Well, after the break, Brandon Schwartzberg will join us again. We're going to play a game called High, Low, and Hero.
And, of course, we've got some awards to give out and the top 5 plays of the week. Stay right here.
I tell my son, I love you every single day. Now, my dad has never said that to me. Not because he doesn't love me, but because culturally it wasn't comfortable for him. Now that he's a grandfather, he says, I love you to my son every time he sees him. My advice to all the fathers out there, forget the cultural restrictions. They grow up way too fast for you to waste even a single precious moment.
I think I finally found.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, Mason.
Hey, Mason.
Got a new house. It's looking pretty cool so far. A place that I call home.
I'm teaching Louise how to cook some lasagna.
It only takes a spark to make a fire start.
Thank you.
Study, please.
finally found a place to make my own. A place that I call home. This place that I call home.
Welcome back to the Left Bench, presented by Terrapin Sports Central. I'm Jonas Evans. That's Nathan Schwartz, and look who's back. It's Brandon Schwartzberg again in studio to play a little game we call High, Low, and Hero.
So we're going to go around for each sports fall team for Maryland and give our bright spot, which will be the high, something that has gone wrong, which is going to be the low, and then who's been the hero of the team so far. And I think we have to start with football, right?
Kind of I mean, you're the writer. We have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've already talked a lot about football, and we've already talked a lot about what my high is going to be. And we asked you about this, Brandon, but it's the Ty Felton and the Billy Edwards connection. Felton so far is averaging 9 receptions per game, 27 on the season. He's averaging about 17 yards per catch, and he already has those 4 touchdowns. And we said it might mean that could open up more receivers down the line, but for right now, what Maryland's offense has been able to do through those 2 has been amazing to see.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that he is positioning himself to be an NFL wide receiver. The first 3 weeks definitely indicate that, so that's a very, very strong high.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. We'll let you go next.
All right.
Because then I'll build off Nate's point.
Oh, I see.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Well, the low for this season, I think, we were there. That second half against Michigan State, and I can run through what happened there. You had the interception in the red zone from Billy Edwards. Then on the next offensive possession, you've got a missed field goal. Then they allow a 77-yard touchdown on the first play of that next drive for Michigan State, punt it, and game-winning field goal. That was so many consecutive just failures to finish the game, and very, very unexpected, I think, because at one point it kind of looked like they were starting to really get comfortable. This is a home game, only their second, coming off a strong win against UConn. So a little unexpected and definitely disappointing there.
Yeah, I think the biggest reason for that collapse was the missed field goal, because that's all the momentum going back to Michigan State. Then the Aiden Childs-Nick Marsh connection was working really well in that game. Marsh goes 77 yards for that touchdown, and then it was at that point where Maryland could not run the football throughout that entire game. They really could have used running the football in that fourth quarter.
Yeah, and I think kind of you could maybe even extend, Jonas, what you said, going from the second half of Michigan State to the,
a good idea.
To the first half of Virginia. But you know who got them out of that first half rut? It was Ty Felton. He's my hero. He's had 3 straight 100-yard games. Nate, you talked about it a little bit with the connection with Billy Edwards Jr., and we talked about it earlier in the show, kind of how he's waited his turn. It's now his time to shine. He's been one of the best receivers, not just in the Big Ten, but in all of college football. I think that he's been really crucial. He's had 2 straight games of 15 targets. Billy Edwards Jr. is throwing him the ball, and he's making some big plays. He had the touchdown in the first half, a play after he could have had the touchdown. Officials gave
That's the most impressive catch I've seen this season. Even if it doesn't count. That's
Ball don't lie. I mean, the craziest part was the next play that he got that touchdown on the seam after getting the toe tap in the back corner of the end zone. Jalen Husky was able to get that toe tap later in the game on the interception and get it back for Maryland.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's move to men's soccer, and we've also talked about their high because it happened very recently. That win 3-0 against number 8 Wisconsin. What a turning point in the season this might end up being. And the Badgers defense, they had only allowed 2 goals in 5 games before that. So for Maryland to do that, biggest win against a top 10 opponent since 2019. That's 5 years, and we know how good this program's been, but that is a all-time win for them, and really, I think, going to change the season.
Yeah, I think especially considering kind of their struggles last year in the Big Ten, it was huge. Not only a top 10 win, like you said, Jones, but against such a good Big Ten opponent, I think there's no better way really to kind of get your Big Ten slate underway. And then for me, the low, you're giving the most recent match. I'm going all the way back to the beginning. It was the 1-1 draw with UMBC. I think the way they drew, I think that's kind of the reason why. They scored that late goal, and then only a few minutes later in the 87th minute, they allowed what ended up being the game-tying goal. And I think just kind of the way it happened, you're thinking, oh, this is going to be a draw the entire way. Then late in the match, Maryland scores the goal, and you're like, oh my God, Maryland's going to pull out the win. It's going to be a big win to open the season. And then just a few minutes later, UMBC ties it. And so I just think it's honestly a good thing because that's how well men's soccer season has gone. especially considering how last year went.
And that UMBC match was interesting because Luke Van Hukelum scores the goal in the 85th minute on what might have been an offsides that wasn't called, and then they wind up giving up the equalizer. But I'm going to go for the hero, to Leon Kuhl. He's been the penalty taker for this team so far. Throughout the season, 2 goals that he's scored have come on the penalty kicks, and he's been a great presence in the midfield. In his second year with the team, you can bring him up, you can have him drift back a little bit as well, and that size and speed combination that he has in the middle of the pitch, it's worked wonders and opened up a lot of doors for Maryland so far.
And taking the penalties is not some little thing. Like, that is one of the most high pressure situations you can put any of your players into. He's been stepping up, providing for that team. Definitely a key player. Let's move to women's soccer, and excuse me, no, you're going.
Brandon.
Sorry, I'm jumping the gun.
Yeah, women's soccer, I'm going to get it started here with the high. I think it has to be the 4-0 rout against VCU only a couple matches ago. It was their most goals since 2019. It was really an excellent performance all around. I mean, a shutout's great, 4 goals is great, and I think especially for a team that's had their struggles, especially the last match, it was an impressive showing, and I think if they could just kind of find that consistency throughout the season, just get a little bit of it, especially during Big Ten play, that'll be huge.
And I think when you say consistency, especially in the goal scoring, because you say 4 goals was really, really good, but we just haven't seen that enough this season. So, but yeah, that was a good moment.
And that goes right into my low, which is the lack of the consistency from this team. But I want to focus in on specifically their struggles in conference play. And we talked about it earlier, 5-0 defeat to Michigan State, of course, number 5 team in the country. That's a tough competition. But this is a Maryland women's soccer program that hasn't scored a conference goal since October of 2022 on the road against Purdue. It's not that they just aren't winning the matches, they're not even scoring, so you can't even get the draws as well. That's the biggest cause for concern for this team.
So in a team like that where maybe goal scoring isn't exactly the strongest, I will say that Liz Beardsley has stepped up. She's my hero. 3 shutouts. She's got a 70% save percentage right now this season, and she had 7 in a game against Lehigh this season. And we know how good she's been. She's been good for a few years now. She's been a rock at that goalkeeper position, and I think they need to start providing for her because she's kind of saving as much as she can. The real question is who can start providing those goals.
Absolutely, and if Beardsley can keep it up, that team has a chance. So let's go right into field hockey, home stretch here, 2 more to go. And for the high, I'm going to go with the experience that this group has. Of course, we could talk about Missy Maharg all show long, but then on the field, Emma DeBurdine, Rain Wright, Hope Rose, the main 3, Kylie Neiswanger, a captain on this team, just had that hat trick that we talked about earlier. And then you have some younger players like Josie Holloman that have really stepped up in now year 2 for Holloman, especially in the corner aspect. So this team faces a lot of tough competition as they already have, and that experience is only going to help them down the line.
I'm going to go with the low with that 2-game losing skid that we saw against Duke and Virginia, and it was mostly because they didn't score a goal in either game, and I think that is very unexpected for Maryland field hockey. This is such an efficient offense usually, so for them to go 2 straight games, 1-0 losses, I think that's definitely frustrating. It's definitely helped that they've since then won 8-1, so kind of the offensive confidence maybe back a little bit, but that 2-game stretch was definitely disappointing from Maharg.
Yeah, you just kind of mentioned a little bit about the offense, and I think that's why, for me, the hero is Alyssa Klapasco in the goal. I think that's why her importance there is so vital for this team. She's had 2 shutouts this season. She hasn't given up more than 2 goals in any game. I mean, she's been facing, along with the rest of the team, a bunch of high-caliber opponents, Virginia, Duke, Louisville. Missy Maharg does not have an easy non-conference schedule, and I think having kind of a rock there to protect the cage, especially because their offense, they don't have really a one main go-to scorer. It's been a lot of kind of depth, and while that has its pluses, it can also kind of hurt them as the season goes on, which again, Klapasco protecting the cage is going to be so vital for them.
One of the many teams that Maryland has that schedule very, very tough schedules. Let's go to volleyball. Let's finish with volleyball. And my high is right now. They are on a 5-game winning streak. They are firing at all cylinders. No losses in September. We saw from that game against UMBC on Sunday, Samantha Schnitta, Sam Sire, Anastasia Russ. They have some real dominant figures there at the net. But I do also want to give a little bit of context because they won 6 games in a row right before Big Ten play started last season, and then the losses started to pile in. So this is a really good stretch they're on right now. The offense has looked really, really phenomenal, but how does that work once the conference play starts, I think, is going to be the biggest key here.
Yeah, you mentioned how strong they are in the month of September. I wonder if they're playing a little Earth, Wind, and Fire in the locker room before the game. It's funny because I'm going to go before that, the LSU tournament, that's my low. They started out on a high note, but then back-to-back losses. It's been their only losses of the season, so I think that's just kind of, again, a credit, like men's soccer, to how overall successful the season has been so far. I think they've really righted the ship, and especially, like you said, in the month of September, coming back home, I think that was really good for them, for Coach Adam Hughes' squad.
The 21st night of September coming up next week.
Yeah, way to use my favorite song on the desk. I really appreciate that.
That was going, Brandon. All right, last one here, the hero for volleyball. I'm going to go with Samantha Schnetta. We know what Sam Sires been able to do for this team. We know what Sydney Dowler's been able to do over their Maryland careers. Schnetta coming over last year from Ole Miss, and so far this year, 24 blocks, 98 kills, and this team is rolling right now, as you talked about, Jonas.
Well, that does it for all 5 sports. Brandon, thank you for joining us again. You're kind of becoming just the third anchor at this point for us. We appreciate it.
You know, it's always a pleasure, and it's always fun with you two, so I'm grateful.
We got to actually get you in an anchor position sometime.
Yeah, you need a suit. That's what you really need.
You'll be on the sidelines coming up next month, though, so we'll tell everybody to be on the lookout for that. But now it's award time, and let's start by naming our Terp of the Week. We'll go out to the Plex this time around and give the crown to Maryland Field Hockey's Kylie Neiswanger. Going into Sunday's game, Neiswanger had 2 career goals, both coming in 2022. Well, not only did she score her first goal in 2 years, but she picked up a hat trick. The Hattie was Maryland's first since Hope Rose did it a year ago, and for Neiswanger, it was her first multi-goal game at Maryland, helping the Terps grab a win over Lock Haven. Congrats to Kylie for being our Terp of the Week.
A former Maryland pitcher made his MLB debut for the White Sox last week, and on Sunday, he picked up a win in his first career start. This week's Pro Terp is Sean Burke. After being selected in the 3rd round of the 2021 draft, Burke made 16 starts for Chicago's AAA team, the Charlotte Knights. He held opposing hitters to a .199 batting average with 86 total strikeouts in Charlotte. Burke got the call up on Tuesday, making his MLB debut in 3 innings of relief against the Guardians. And on Sunday, Burke's squad hosted the Athletics, and he got the start. 2 earned runs with 5 strikeouts in 5 innings propelled the Sox to a 4-3 victory and handed Burke his first career win. Congrats to Sean for being our Pro Terp of the Week. All right, Nate, it's top 5 playtime. How about you bring the boom?
Let's do it, man. Boom meter, activate. All right, let's start with Carly Hine chipping the Lock Haven goalkeeper for the second goal of the day for the Terps, using that aerial to get Maryland on the board.
At number 4, we've got Chris Steinleitner getting high and finishing for the first goal of the game. That was so huge for that upset victory against Wisconsin, a clutch goal in a packed box.
One heck of a volley by Steinleitner right there. And we're going to stay at Ludwig. Look at Colin Griffith. Absolute class scoring from distance. Griffith was slow to begin the year, but he has really started to come into his own. I mean, just look at the skates he puts the Wisconsin defender on and the finish.
All right, at number 2, we've got toe drag swag from a defender. That's Jalen Husky keeping his feet in for the interception. What an athletic play. He was juiced all night, Nate.
Nate Burleson would have loved that one, and he's going to love this one too. Dylan Wade with a one-handed grab on a wheel route down the sideline. He scored a touchdown on this route last week, and this time he fights through contact. You see him hauling that one in with his right hand, and that was in the 4th quarter, Jonas. A great way to wrap up the day for Maryland football.
What a bunch of plays there. That was a good
This was one of the strongest top 5s we had in quite some time. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of The Left Bench. Next week, Alexa Wooten and Matthew Noose will be behind the desk.
Be sure to stay tuned with all of our coverage on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and X.
We'll see you next time.